Coming to you directly from Soapbox World headquarters, this is the Up on the Soapbox podcast, a production of Soapbox Marketing Communication. The Soapbox is the promotional products industry's newest communication platform. We organize and facilitate deep dive virtual conversations between some of the industry's most compelling suppliers and top producing distributor salespeople from markets all across the country. All these conversations happen on our custom online platform, promosoapbox.com. The foundational goal for the Soapbox is to host and foster a simple yet dynamic online environment which helps develop deep personal business connections by way of purposeful one-on-one conversation. I am Brett Schaefer, and along with my partner and co-host Dan Piggott, we bring you Up on the Soapbox. Welcome to the Up on the Soapbox podcast. Thank you for joining us for episode 2. Very exciting time here at the Soapbox this week. Joining me, as always, is my co-host and partner, Dan Piggott. Say hello, Dan.
As always.
I love that we can say as always now. Yes, exactly. Now
That's
we have
cool.
a history. It's episode 2, so we actually have a history now. So how you doing, Dan? Good to see you again, man.
I'm doing great.
Yeah, it's been about 3 minutes.
Looking forward to Wednesday. Right?
Absolutely. So thank you all for joining us again. We hope you liked the first one. And I also like to make a comment that this is the improved Up on the Soapbox episode 2. As you can see, we look a little bit brighter, cheerier. So we've learned some things along the way, and we hope that we continue to learn as we go along in the process here. So this is our podcast, and as a reminder, we do a few different things here, but first and foremost, we're highlighting some of the supplier principles that are on the Soapbox with us, and this week's guest is no exception to that, and I'll get to him in a second here, but we'll learn about our guests each week. We'll also give them an opportunity to step up on the Soapbox and share their opinions about whatever's topical and fresh on their mind, and then we're going to wrap up our podcast with a yes/no question, as you saw last week, for those of you who tuned into last week. So Nik Mirich of Headwear USA is joining us this week. Nik, how you doing, man?
Fantastic, and thank you for not butchering my name. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, we had some practice. I will not tell a lie there. So we appreciate you coming on up on the Soapbox this week, and we're about to get into the meat and potatoes of it all. But I actually was thinking about the Soapbox, or at least our episode this morning, and I realized between us we probably have about 19 feet in length of man on this episode right now. Nik is no short guy, Dan is no short guy, and of course I'm over 6 foot as well. So we have a lot of height represented on this podcast. And one of the things that you'll recognize about Nik, first and foremost, not just his intimidating size, but his native Baltimore or Maryland accent. It's really hard, it's really easy to pick up here. So Nik, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I'd also love to hear how you got into promo. Tell us a little bit about Headwear USA and any other interesting facts you want to share with us and our audience.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you once again for having me on. So with Headwear, I started with Headwear about 13 years ago and just stumbled on it through a friend over in Australia and worked my way through the business and ran the operation over there and at some point decided to take on the US operation. Once again, my elevator pitch, just to sort of just go through that, right? So, the idea when people ask me, and people are always asking, what's your elevator pitch? I always say, I save lives, so I'm most probably the most important person you're going to meet. Because we save lives for bald people like yourself, Brett, basically melanoma is real, man, so, caps and then now with masks and everything we're doing there, which we transitioned into quite well, globally, that is. So that's where I sort of come in and with Headwear. On the Headwear side, on the global scale, like I said, I started off in Australia. And due to the fact that my wife's from the USA, she actually grew up in Fairfax, Virginia, which is literally about 50 minutes from where we live and where the office was. We went to university together at George Mason. I played a bit of basketball there, and then I took her away and we moved to Australia. And then literally 5 years ago, we came full circle. Got all 3 kids, moved over to the US to take on the US operation, and away we went. Headwear, in regards to Headwear, it was good to see the presentation last week. And literally we have some similarities in the sense that headwear is not a brand. And so a lot of people, even in the industry, don't know who Headwear is and don't know who Headwear USA is. And once again, I've put my logo on the back of the backdrop, but that's as far as pretty much so we go. We do it at a trade show and we do it on something like this, but our brand Headwear is nowhere in is nowhere in the cap. It's not on the box. We're a true blind label, and we are the #1 global distributor in headwear worldwide. And it's just interesting to, for a lot of people to say, well, I've never really heard of headwear. And so, it becomes, a relationship business, which I'm sure we're going to get stuck more into, but that's where we position ourselves. We've got offices in the UK, in Europe, in Poland. We've got offices in Belgium, Germany, Sweden. And then when you go down to Australia, we've got, 4 warehouses, 5 office locations in Australia, plus New Zealand. And then in the US and Canada, we've also got locations. So yeah, once again, I don't think people understand, the global scale of what we're doing. So, we are the experts and we're specialists. And that's how.
Nik, how do you see differences between the different locations and their markets, and how do you discuss sort of the differences in how the different countries go to market?
A great question, Dan. And yeah, so in Australia, it's a big split is workwear. So workwear in Australia, you have to actually, in the first and fourth quarter of school, kids have to mandatorily wear a hat outdoors because of the ozone effect and skin cancer and melanoma. So, when I say that, it's actually true. And same thing with workwear. If you're working outdoors, you actually have to, as an employer, you actually have to provide some protection for your staff. So a big portion of that is schools and workwear. But then also there is that promotional aspect. But here in the US, it seems to be, a majority on the promo side, promo and uniform. In Europe, same sort of thing, most probably promo and uniform. UK's, brand oriented in sense of like fashion stylistic, most probably, but yeah, same sort of thing as we are. But yeah, that'd be the difference between, I guess, the northern and southern hemisphere, but it's a bit of everything for all of us, really.
Did you first come to the US to play basketball at George Mason, or did something else bring you here first?
No, that was my I got to know a coach in Australia, Robbie Cadee. I'll put his name out there. No one will know in that sense. But yeah, he knew a guy called Paul Westhead, and Paul Westhead recruited me. I was on the Australian junior team some time ago, and then I got recruited and I came over here with no idea outside of having come on a couple of trips. Like we did some trips when I was a couple of years younger, and then wasn't really sure that what to expect. But then 2 years of Paul Westhead and 2 years of Jim Larranaga, and then somehow graduated. I wasn't no studious guy, but got through it.
Those are some serious coaches right there, though. That's no fooling around. Those two guys are well-known entities within basketball for sure. My question is this: what do people who are not 6'10", what do we not understand about being that tall in this world? Is there some magic to it that we're not, privy to?
No, it's just when they say the bigger they are, the harder they fall. It's actually true. I started snowboarding a couple of years ago, and I can tell you right now, that's a fact. The idea of getting into the toilet of an aeroplane is a lot more challenging than most. So there you go. There's a hard fact for you.
Thank you.
But yeah, look, once again, there are some benefits. But at the same time, there's pluses and minuses. I could go on for days on that one, Dan.
I could tell you from my experience that trying to wash dishes in a kitchen sink is always challenging. That's a really deep bend. All right, Nik.
That's why I don't do them. No,
fair enough.
I do help.
Fair enough. All right, Nik. It's time to step up on the soapbox. So tell us what's on your mind today.
I was thinking about relationships and especially at this time of year where we're normally hanging out in Vegas, and I was sort of reflecting towards the end of the year, and this is where I've gone back to the idea that the old norm is the new norm, and I know I briefly mentioned this to Dan, but what I mean by that is the fact that back in the day when you used to sell, it used to be on a relationship. You used to be the guy at the corner store, and you'd go down there and you'd have a relationship. And then, as business goes on, you go door to door. And obviously now with COVID, that's not going to happen. Call centers were a thing, email marketing, you got social media, you got virtual trade shows, all of these sort of things. And I'm saying, yeah, they're all a necessity, but the big thing that sort of came out is like, who are you? Who are we as a company? And, some people might think, like not having your brand on something, that's the dumbest marketing strategy on the planet, right? And you go, well, yeah, because a lot of these other guys, they put their labels on it, and it's easy marketing because they know where that comes back around. They know where that comes, where those caps come from. Whereas for Headwear, we actually truly rely on relationships. Like that's the only way that we can do business. And so the idea that we can't go to a trade show, it really did hit home. And it's been one of those things for us where we've developed those relationships over the last 6 years. But what COVID's done is really sort of brought it back into, hang on, you don't have to go out and sort of start waving the flag. You got to go back and consolidate those relationships that you've had. And I can tell you right now, it's been a challenge because you can't run away from it, And so that's where the, the Zoom meetings and, you got the group ones and the one-on-ones, but this is why we've jumped on Soapbox. And this is not me just sort of tooting your horn, but this is why we've jumped onto Soapbox, because we feel like that one-on-one relationship is really and truly what our industry sort of comes down to. Yeah, fair enough. You got to provide a product and a price and all of that and a service. But at the same time, it's, how do we get out there? Well, we're focused on that one-on-one relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point. And you're right. I mean, I think the whole thing is now boiling back down to those relationships for sure. What, in terms of the hat portion of the headwear portion of the promotional products market, is there anything specific about that market that might make it unique versus other categories, whether it's bags or apparel or pins or anything else?
Yeah, look, I think people see it as a commodity, like just an add-on. But we always say to people they should put it out there first, because like masks, the masks that we're doing, they're only decorated masks. We're not doing the throwaway disposable ones. We've always thought that we're not going to stock these because they're going to come and go. So we've focused on our offshore, using the factory, getting the masks in. And when you're talking about billboards, whether it's on and I should be wearing one of my caps, right? So that I can sort of show you the billboard effect, right? So the idea that, we do retail quality apparel for, the promotional industry. I mean, there's no better billboard than a cap, and then now a face mask. So in that sense, I feel, I truly feel that, the product is next to none. I mean, and I won't talk bad about, I was going to go talk bad about some other products, but there's obviously value in all of them. But here I say is, 7% of the market is what they're saying that headwear is.
Wow.
So 7%, that's a big percentage.
When it comes to your business, I know a big part of what you do is custom overseas. And I was just wondering if you could discuss a little bit about, that process and how that works and how those great designs, I've seen a lot of your work. How do those, come to fruition?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, obviously it starts with the idea, and the more input you give us, the better it comes out, right? So it's funny when people come to us to do the designs, it's like, and I shouldn't say it, but crap in, crap out. Like, if you don't give us the information up front, then it's going to come back, and we're going to go back and forth in this relationship until we get it right. So it's sort of one of those things where it's kind of hard to nail first time around, but that's where we go back and forth, and we create some designs, and then we go ahead and we create some specs. And it's something that we're doing for people that have jumped on board the Soapbox. So the distributors that jump on board, they'll get that experience. So that's going to be part of the journey. And yeah, if you want to know more, then jump on Soapbox, then I'll tell you.
That's fantastic transition. We appreciate that. The segue, it's like you were paid to do it. So thank you.
Yeah, I know.
Checks in the mail. Checks in the mail. All right. So cash. So we're going to wrap up the podcast today with our yes/no question. And this one's a bit of a meatball or softball. I don't know exactly what type of ball it is, but I know you're going to have a ball with it. See, we're all about the segues. So here's my question to you. And this is yes/no, Nick. Remember, yes/no question. Is Australian rules football better than American football?
Yes.
Well, hold on. I'll give you a little time to think about that.
No time needed.
Wow. Okay. Well, what is this? It's a crazy thing. You guys play in short pants, I believe. And what, it looks a little funny, I have to say. But I can never figure out the rules.
It is a little awkward, but what's interesting is I grew up in Sydney, and Sydney's a big rugby town. So we do rugby league, rugby union, and it was always me following the rugby, and I still follow a little bit of the rugby. And then I moved to Melbourne. After I came back from college, I moved back to Melbourne and lived there for 11 years and got to understand AFL. I had a hatred for it because I was from Sydney, and people from Melbourne are more on the Australian rules football. But then after a while, you start to, and I tried to play the game, and here I tell you, it's a little bit like ice hockey, right? You've got this oval ball that's bouncing around in various directions, and here you are, you're trying to catch the ball over someone's back, a good, 7 feet above the ground, and then trying to catch it while you're trying to land. And then on top of that, you've got someone trying to tackle you and knock you out. The game is like, when you're talking about kicking and using your hands and feet, like, it's a combination of all of the above. And that's why I kind of give it that comparison to ice hockey. I think they're two of the most difficult sports on the planet with the hand-eye coordination. And I've tried ice skating. It doesn't work when you're 6'10". I just haven't seen, except for that Bruins guy. There's a guy I watch for the Bruins about 6'9".
Yep.
And he moves quite well on there, but you're not going to find too many of them out there. And on the flip side, on the AFL side, I think it's the same. The big thing about American football that I've grown to appreciate from playing Madden back in my college days with my teammates was the military execution of it. Like, I can't really do the 4 hours. Like, that kind of gets me. But the military sort of strategizing to it is pretty cool, and you get that effect. But I guess I just didn't grow up with it,
So what are the big differences between rugby and Australian rules football? I kind of morph them almost to similar. They're not. You're saying
two completely different sports.
Really?
The two similarities is there's an oval ball, and you get to tackle people. Like, it's just, literally they're two different games. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to take your.
I have to do my homework on this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We'll have to take your word from about that, and we'll have to agree to disagree on which one's better. But Nik, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it, and you can see Headwear USA on the Soapbox. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.